Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to welcome everyone formally to the opening and launch for the National Plastics Action Plan Ghana Financing Roadmap. First and foremost, thank you all for dedicating your time today. We are really appreciative and humbled by it. And we are hoping that today is an engaging, informative session that highlights all of the efforts that have been undertaken by the various stakeholders to get to this point. We want to reinforce that today is a significant milestone for us in terms of the culmination of the efforts and undertakings for the National Plastics Action Plan. We would encourage everyone to be as engaged and forthcoming in their feedback as possible. My name is Sabiha Mansoor. I'm from Delivery Associates, who has been working with the various stakeholders in this launch. I am the Associate Director for the Africa region, and I'm accompanied by the various team members who have been joining us for the efforts for the launch today. Ahead of going into the actual meat of today's conversation and the launch itself, I just want to make sure that you are aware of today's main theme, which is for the National Plastics Action Plan Ghana, which is the year of action, unlocking financing to drive action. So again, welcome. We look forward to participation today, and any feedback thereafter is also welcome. If I can take you to the next slide, just to go into some Zoom housekeeping rules for today. If we can move to the next slide, thank you very much. So there are three main rules for today, beyond being engaged and, if possible, cameras on. Please rename your Zoom ID with your name and institution. You can find that in participant list, clicking on your name and more. You'd be able to rename your name thereafter. If you have any questions or comments, we will be holding that within the chat box. So feel free to either raise your hand, we'll acknowledge you via the chat or via a consolidation of the questions thereafter. But please do feel free to put any of your thoughts or comments in the chat box or raise your hand. And then lastly, if you are not speaking, we'd appreciate if you could keep muted. We will, and please do not find this to be any indication of rudeness. For those of you who are not speaking, when you aren't, we will mute you. So if you aren't speaking, muted if possible. Thank you so much. And now to jump into the meat of today's conversation and what we're quite excited about in today's launch. If we can go to the objectives, thank you very much. So there are three key main objectives today. One, first and foremost, is to provide a view on the state of the circular economy in Ghana. Secondly, to outline the key recommendations from the NPAP Ghana Financing Roadmap. And lastly, to afford all of the various stakeholders who have been involved and participating in today's call an opportunity to engage and network and provide any other feedback that is needed. If we can go to the next slide. We have quite a full agenda today, which we're quite thankful for. It will be a duration of 120 minutes. It will be divided into three key sessions. First and foremost, session one being a message from all of the key stakeholders who have been involved in aiding with the transition of the plastics value chain in Ghana, from a linear model to a circular economy. Session two will be an opportunity to engage in discussion via breakout rooms where the stakeholders and the guests today will have an opportunity to network with fellow members and have engaging discussions around building blocks for unlocking financing opportunities for a circular plastics economy. And session three will culminate in a panel discussion by distinguished actors who have experience in methods of identifying opportunities within plastics value chains, both regionally within Ghana, Africa, and internationally as well. They will also discuss how to unlock financing to drive action as per our key theme for today. And with that, I'd like to transition us to our first speaker that we would like to thank for being here today, Mr. Solomon Asamoah. He'll be providing us with the opening remarks. Mr. Asamoah is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, a permanent investment vehicle established by the government of Ghana. Mr. Asamoah has over 25 years of deal-making experience and has led over $4 billion worth of transactions across the African continent. Crucial to the GIIF's mandate is to leverage private sector funds into infrastructure assets in Ghana, and we are honored and excited today to have the CEO of such a distinguished institution opening the proceedings for today. And with that, I pass over to Mr. Asamoah. Thank you for your time, and we are looking forward to your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the warm introduction. And good morning and a very warm welcome to all participants and distinguished officials, financing task force members, guests, and thank you for attending and supporting the launch of the Plastic Actions group today in Ghana. We really appreciate the time that you made available for this. First, I need to acknowledge the efforts of the financing task force members in creating the financing roadmap and how it marks a significant milestone in Ghana's commitment to tackle the plastic pollution crisis. Just to highlight, the plastics pollution crisis in Ghana generates around 0.84 million tons of plastic waste each year, a total that is growing by 5.4% annually. Plastic leakage into the country's water bodies is projected to grow by 190% between 2020 and 2040, from approximately 78,000 tons per year to 228,000 tons per year if no action is taken place. And we can all imagine what sort of harm that would do to the environment. There is a significant financing gap, though, to be able to address this. The cumulative financing shortfall for the circular economy related SDGs is projected to be around $193 billion by 2030, representing 45% of the anticipated total SDG gap. There is also the need to highlight industry, innovation, and infrastructure, since these lead the gap with $120 billion. So there's much work needed to be done and much urgent action is required to change this situation. The public and the private sectors, civil society and government need to work together to tackle plastic pollution. It's too big for one particular group to do it on their own. Working together is also necessary to unlock sustainable financing for activities across the full plastics value chain that facilitate the transition to a circular plastics economy. Only through focusing on these solutions and driving their implementation will we bring about drastic change. I also acknowledge the diverse mix of actions in the financing task force, government ministries and institutions, development organizations, the local and international financial sector, industry organizations, as well as international organizations, all committed to bring about change in the way we view, use, and think about plastics. The financing task force has come together to encourage efforts to remove policy barriers to investment, facilitate the development of innovative financial mechanisms that will attract more investment into the circular plastics value chain, and also identify critical actions that can allow organizations to coalesce and catalyze action in financing the plastic sector in Ghana. As an institution that itself has managed to bring in outside financing 10 times the amount that we at Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund have invested into our projects, we recognize the importance of a holistic approach and attracting private sector financing into your projects. It's very important. Let me highlight that Ghana is an example of the challenges that are facing the rest of Africa. As I mentioned earlier, Ghana has experienced significant economic growth, but this has coincided with a substantial increase in the consumption of plastic products, especially single-use plastics, and consequently a rise in plastic waste. It is estimated that Ghana generates close to 1 million tons of post-consumer plastic waste each year, a total, as I've mentioned, that's rising annually by 5.4%. However, the economic success is choked by Ghana and many other African countries themselves are under siege due to the impact of COVID-19 weakening the macroeconomic fundamentals. So Ghana has a mixed challenge, how to sustain and actually increase the rebound after COVID-19 in economic activity, but reduce the accompanying plastic consumption rates, which accompanied the previous economic growth. Ghana represents the first national action plan to be formed in Ghana. We have an ambitious plan, and the people of Ghana are looking to MPAP members to lead on plastic waste reduction. This is an opportunity for financing organizations to become leaders and experts in the financing of circular economic economy activities in Ghana, and for the task force as a whole to drive action that will transform the financing of activities in the plastic sector. Globally, it is estimated that without significant action, 29 million tons of plastics will flow into the ocean every year by 2040. There are known solutions, however, to this potential disaster. Yet the transition to a circular economy will require significant investments. We need to focus on that because we also know the solutions themselves will unlock significant economic activity. We need to see that plastic waste is not a neutral objective concept, but rather pollution affects diverse groups of people differently in terms of the opportunities, risks, exposure, and health outcomes it creates. Ghana's linear plastics model offers employment opportunities to about 31% of women. But as Ghana transitions towards a circular economy to end plastic pollution, the growth of the green industries represent a significant source of jobs and business opportunities for women and youth in emerging markets. Similar success stands to be chalked by other African countries as well as Ghana. So the future, the green sustainable future that we're all aspiring to itself will bring the jobs and the economic activities that we all require. Finally, I would like to encourage all guests to consider what they also can do personally and lead by example. This includes identifying actions that can create impact and show quick wins for plastic waste reduction. Simple things like starting to segregate plastic waste at home. If done with commitment by communities, it can go a long way to achieve our desired goals. Everybody has a role to play to help in this transition. And with these few words, I want to once again welcome you all and thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you very successful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Solomon Asamoah. That was indeed a very earnest welcome to today's proceedings. We appreciate the time you've provided to this. And once again, thank you for reinforcing that Ghana is a pivotal example to the success for the region and the country itself. Again, we thank you for your time today. And with that, we'd like to welcome Ms. Juvara Omirali, who is currently our co-chair for the Impact Ghana Financing Task Force. She is currently working as the investment manager at the British International Investment, formerly known as the CDC Group. Her impact investment and circular economy experience makes her an invaluable addition to our task force, and I will now hand over to her for the co-chair address. Ahead of doing that, however, I just want to briefly acknowledge Ms. Gladys Osobute, who is also joining the call today. She is also a co-chair to the Financing Task Force and represents the Ministry of Finance. Welcome and thank you for your participation. With that, I hand over to you, Ms. Juvara, and we appreciate your time for today.
Great. Thank you, Sabi. Good morning, everyone. It's an immense pleasure for me to speak at this distinguished event. I am proud to be here today to be witnessing the achievement of a major milestone of the Ghana National Plastic Action Partnership Initiative. So perhaps a very quick introduction of myself and the institution I represent. So my name is Juvara Omirali, and my day-to-day is investing in difficult places to solve difficult issues. And I do this on behalf of the British International Investment. So you might be more familiar with its former name, which is CDC Group. And CDC Group is the UK's development finance organization. So BII CDC invests in difficult places in the world, and we have led the way in taking on some of the world scale challenges. An example of the pioneering work that I'm very proud that my institution has done is in increasing electrification rates in Africa. And recently, we've been doing this in a way that has minimal impact on the planet through renewable energy platforms. Now, I think plastic waste and pollution is no different. And today, along with our colleagues from other institutions, we're trying to find solutions to this new world challenge. So in addition now to my day-to-day at CDC, I have had the pleasure to serve as one of the Financing Task Force co-chairs, along with Ms. Gladys Osobute, who is also one of the co-chairs. So Ms. Gladys Osabute is the head of the UN systems and chief economics officer at the Ministry of Finance. And for us, it is both of our pleasure to be a part of this task force. Now, the event today marks the culmination of an enormous collective effort that began in September 2021. Many institutions and individuals have contributed to thinking of where the opportunities and challenges are to unlocking and attracting sustainable funding for the plastics value chain. And collectively today, we've developed recommendations that we think are the foundational steps to addressing the plastic waste crisis in Ghana. Now, some of the key challenges we have seen that are impeding investment in the sector are, for example, a tough commercial investment environment, limited institutional and technical capacity for circular economy practices. And then you've got the informal economy. How do you integrate the informal economy within a more institutionalized framework? There's also a lack of competition in the waste management sector, a lack of capacity in the waste management sector. Now, these are just a few of the challenges that I've outlined. And in today's roadmap, we outline three themes as a means of de-risking and stimulating investor confidence in addressing Ghana's circular economy agenda. And these three themes are theme 1, which is government intervention in creating financial incentives and setting an enabling policy. The second theme is the collaboration from financial institutions in developing sustainable financing instruments and a sustainable financing environment. The third theme is the upstream and downstream activities, scaling these up to make investments commercial enough, worthwhile enough. Now, just 7 months after our very first inaugural financing task force meeting, we are today proud to launch the financing roadmap. I want to take this occasion as well to thank all the partners we have engaged with that have provided the necessary input to put in place to develop this financing roadmap. While this is just a start, I firmly believe that the financing task force is sufficiently committed to driving implementation of these recommendations that we've identified. And really, through our collective efforts, we will see success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Omereli. We really appreciate your comments and really appreciate the three themes that have been highlighted, which will come up today in the discussions in the breakout rooms. And with that, and bearing in mind the time that we have and wanting to honor as much as we can, we'd like to welcome and introduce Ms. Christian Hughes, who represents the Global Plastics Action Plan. She's currently the director of GPAP. She's a skilled engagement and social responsibility strategist, passionate about equality, climate action, and sustainability, but to name a few. It is our distinct pleasure and honor today to welcome her to provide a short message at the launch of today's NPAP Ghana Financing Roadmap. With that, I'm going to hand over to you, Ms. Hughes. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for those very kind words. That was a very lovely introduction, and it's really such a pleasure to be here today. Really sorry that it's all over Zoom. I'm sure some of you also are dealing with COVID in your own ways, so very sorry not to see all of you in person, but it's so nice to see the faces and the names of so many people that I've had the pleasure of working with over the last few years. So I want to say hello to all of the ministers and government officials who are here today, as well as our partners, our colleagues and friends. Really appreciate everyone's engagement and enthusiasm for such an important topic. A lot of statistics that people have heard, and even already this afternoon, but we already know that there will be a dramatic increase in plastic pollution if we don't take drastic action now. We've heard the statistics that if we don't actually lead, by 2050 there will actually be more plastic than fish in the ocean, and currently around 8 million tons of plastic waste ends up in the ocean every year. If no action is taken, this is looking to double by 2030 and possibly to treble or even quadruple by 2050. And that is why you all are here today. And this is why we are all looking to take important action. You already mentioned I'm Kristen Hughes with the Global Plastic Action Partnership. And as I mentioned, it's really exciting to be in the room with all of you today. At GPAP, we aim to shape a more sustainable and inclusive world through the eradication of plastic pollution, and we know that we could not do it without the engagement of everybody here. The multi-stakeholder platform that we lead, engaging public, private sector, civil society leaders, academics, and others to drive and develop joint solutions for this mounting crisis. At both the global and the local levels, we're working in 3 main areas: convening communities, generating insights, and catalyzing action. And I really thank you all again being here today to catalyze financial action with this finance roadmap. I was so honored to join many of you 2.5 years ago, October 2019, when in front of 250 policymakers, business leaders, advisors, experts and academics, entrepreneurs, and youth leaders, our own president of Ghana launched the country's NPAP. I still recall him saying, "I declare the NPAP open." And you think about where we've come in those 2.5 years since opening the National Plastic Action Partnership. Ghana should be so proud of the significant milestones that you have taken, convening actors, generating new insights to combat plastic pollution. The National Action Roadmap itself, just launched in December 2021, set a really strong tone for the combined effort to curb plastic waste in Ghana, and actually directed all sorts of different task force activity, including the significant work that we're talking about today with the finance roadmap. We understand that the finance task force convened the first time last September, and that today, with the launch of this action roadmap, finance action roadmap, we understand the financial needs that are required, and also the how to unlocking the finance to combating this crisis and to help Ghana transition to a circular economy. We know that Ghana is already leading the way for the continent, and this finance roadmap will only secure that leadership role for the Ghanaian government in trying to help others to learn from its leadership. There are incentives that will support sustainable investments into the plastics value chain. And through these engagements, hopefully this finance roadmap that's being launched today also identifies challenges as well as opportunities for that enabling environment that brings investment into Ghana and the circular economy. The financing task force is really proud, and should be, of the efforts that it has made to encourage external investments to address plastic waste and to promote the transition to a circular economy in Ghana. We understand that to date, there's not sufficient private investment going into the circular economy for plastics. By the way, this is not just in Ghana, this is something we see around the world, but we're definitely trying to build insights and to attract investments that anticipate policies, regulations, and ways that brands and strategic investors in the plastics value chain can play that important role and boost both demand and the support for a circular economy for plastics. In the meantime, we know governments are mobilizing private capital through thematic bond issuances and loans, and hopefully this will also enable investment in plastic circularity. And we've also recently seen, I'm sure many of you will have noticed that during the UNEA discussions last month, there was agreement to table a legally binding treaty, as it were, on plastic waste and pollution. And through this, we will hopefully see a higher demand for financing plastic waste solutions and circular economy, both upstream and downstream solutions, and ways that governments can look to de-risk and facilitate private investment in this space. So I understand that through today's launch, this is the year of action. And I really like that theme. It really resonates. We are the Global Plastic Action Partnership after all, and we're so excited to see that Ghana, NPAP, and the financing roadmaps will serve as significant catalysts to improve the national policy, to boost innovation into circular businesses, and to invest new ways of working to promote inclusivity and unlock catalytic strategic financing that will support a circular economy transition for Ghana. I look forward to continuing to work with each of you to find these solutions and to continue to position Ghana as a leader, not only on the continent, but in the world, and taking bold steps to address plastic menace. So thank you for having me today, and best of luck for the rest of the session, but also through the year of action. Thank you.
Many thanks, Ms. Hughes. That was a wonderful rallying call. And just to reinforce, as she mentioned, if we do not take dramatic action now, there will be a dramatic increase in plastic pollution. Again, reinforcing the real importance of the private sector and holistic approach. I loved what you said around not just understanding the financing needs, but also the how to unlock. So thank you so much. That was a really inspiring piece of rallying call. We now want to shift to Ms. Heather Troutman, who is the advisor to NPAP Ghana. We are excited to have her here today. Heather is an urban planner and an environmental scientist dedicated to sustainable development. She has been supporting governments, multinationals, MSMEs, NGOs, universities, and think tanks to explore innovative ways for sustainable plastics management for the past decade. Ms. Troutman has supported the GPAP, formerly as a manager and now as an advisor, since the launch of the initiative in 2019, with an aim to bring multi-industry stakeholders together in a unified, holistic national roadmap to timelessly achieve a plastic circular economy. We're really thankful for her support during this entire time and really thankful for her input for today. With that, Heather, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Sabiha. Appreciate it. And good late morning, distinguished guests. On behalf of the Secretariat of the Ghana National Plastic Action Partnership, I'm pleased to welcome you to the launch of the roadmap to unlock transformational financing needed to transition to a circular plastics economy. We're honored and grateful for the intensive support provided by the 26 members of the Financing Task Force, bringing together the perspectives of national and international commercial banks, development banks, investment funds, venture capitalists, the government of Ghana in multiple capacities, plastics producers, brand owners, waste management companies, and recyclers to deliberate over 7 months on the most pertinent tools needed in the short and medium term to open up significant capital to rapidly scale solutions for sustainable management of plastics in Ghana. The aim of the financing roadmap is to serve as a compass for both the public, private, and civil society sectors as we embark on the real work of committing to action. The financing roadmap itself is not the end goal, but the starting point to shape a vibrant market economy for recycled plastics, facilitating economies of scale operations that have both a tangible impact on plastic pollution levels of natural and marine environments, while simultaneously de-risking the investments needed to bring these industries alive. The recommendations of the financing roadmap build upon 2 years of work to prepare the National Action Roadmap for the eradication of plastic pollution in Ghana by 2040, which was guided by the leadership of 120 expert advisors touching every facet of the plastic life cycle and value chain. The full realization of this ambitious plan will require the mobilization of more than $6 billion by 2040 to reduce future plastic waste generation, redesign products and packaging so that they do not become waste, drastically increase waste plastic collection and recycling, and for that small remainder of plastics that cannot be recycled in an economically favorable way in the medium term, to ensure that all residual waste are properly disposed in an environmentally sound manner and never end up in the environment, particularly the ocean. The Ghana NPAP Secretariat is committed to driving action across 6 cross-cutting themes: financing, policy, behavior, inclusion, metrics, and innovation, utilizing a multi-stakeholder coordination model demonstrated here. the convening of a powerful and diverse group of actors in a task force setting to work through the critical accelerator actions identified in the action roadmap. We congratulate and thank the members of the Financing Task Force for setting the bar for future task forces of the Ghana NPAP and showing the quality and the depth of work that can be achieved when we commit to work together and to action to rapidly herald in a circular economy for plastics. I hope that the insights generated in the financing roadmap launched today inspires each of us to identify our role in realizing the suite of recommendations presented here. I encourage us to champion the establishment of a policy environment that enables business, that businesses will collaborate across the value chain and seek the scale needed to attract the financial sector, and that the financial sector will coordinate to bring new innovative financial tools needed for the plastics industry. Thank you all for your participation, and please let the NPAP Secretariat know how we can support your institution to accelerate the important work that you are doing. I hope that you enjoyed the discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. That was really insightful. And just to reinforce, I loved what you said about the financing roadmap just being the start of the journey and not the end goal in and of itself. This is a long road to walk together, and we're really excited for the solutions generated here to go into action. With that, we'd like to welcome and introduce Mr. Oliver Boachi, who's going to speak to us today on the actions needed to unlock a circular economy for the plastics sector in Ghana. We're thankful for your time today, Mr. Boachi. Mr. Boachi is currently serving as a special advisor to the Minister of the Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, where he advises the minister in the formulation of policies and implementation strategies, with the most relevant focus areas for today being the environment, climate change, and the circular economy. It is our distinct pleasure to introduce him to speak here today about the actions needed for transition to the circular economy in Ghana. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to your discussion today, Mr. Boachi. And with that, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. I'd like to thank the Financing Task Force and the NPAP Secretariat for giving me this opportunity to share a few ideas with you this morning. And what I'm going to talk about is unleashing circular economy for plastics in Ghana. What actions are needed? I would like to start. Please go to the next slide, please. I'd like to start with this bold statement that Ghana is already going circular. And why do I say this? First, Ghana has adopted some very important circular policies. There are many circularity initiatives that are already underway in the country. Ghana has made many commitments and obligations that require that we adopt circularity for the management of our resources. And as a country, we are laying a very solid foundation for a circular economy transition. So what next do we need to do to unleash circular economy for plastics in the country? The next slide, please. First of all, I'd like to mention just two policies that underlie what Ghana is doing in transitioning from the linear economic model to a circular model. The National Plastics Management Policy was delivered in 2018 as a zero draft. Of course, since then it has undergone some revisions and was finally adopted by Cabinet in May of 2020. Indeed, this whole plastics management policy is based on circularity. And it is the bold initiatives that we have taken towards circularity that has attracted the attention of so many in the world, including the World Economic Forum, which partnership has established the National Plastics Action Partnership through the initiative known as the Global Plastics Action Partnership. If you look at the Hazardous and E-Waste Control and Management Law, or Act 917, which was passed in 2016, the whole act is based on the principles and practices of circularity. And so, as a nation, we are firmly committed to transitioning from a linear model to a circular model. And this is just two examples of policies that the nation has already adopted. Let's go to the next slide. There are many circularity initiatives that are already taking place in the country. And here I'm just giving you just a few examples of some of the exciting things that are happening within our plastic value chain, which attest to the fact that Ghana is already on its way towards transitioning from a linear model to a circular model. Most of you will be familiar with Neoplast, which is recycling plastics into construction materials. Now, this is a very exciting innovation, which has received numerous awards and continue to attract interest from private investors. Our is a private sector entity that is recycling PET bottles for reuse and export. And as I speak, I think the arrangements between Reparton and some of the packaging brand companies, to transition from the use of virgin materials for the creation of plastics to the use of recycled plastics. And that's a very, very exciting innovation in our country. There's a company called Green EcoWorks that came to see us about a week ago. And the exciting things they are doing with the transformation of plastic waste into wood plastics, it will amaze you. So there are so many of these, and I can only name these 5 just for you to know that there are many circularity initiatives that are already taking place in the country. Next slide. On top of all of these, the government of Ghana has made commitments, and we have obligations under many international protocols. And here I would like to mention these 3. The Basel Convention is actually a convention or protocol under which the transborder movement of waste is controlled and managed. And under the Basel Convention, waste that is transported across boundaries must have first the consent and agreement between those who are exporting and those who are importing. And on top of that, the one importing must have the capacity to recycle. The whole idea is to ensure that waste is not transported over boundaries to create waste in an environment where there's no capacity to be able to recycle them. The Stockholm Convention is very similar, except that it also includes hazardous waste and how to manage them. And Christine talked about the pending global treaty on plastics that Ghana is championing together with Germany, Ecuador, Vietnam, Peru, and Rwanda. The whole idea about the Global Plastic Treaty is based on circularity, which means that as a nation, we need to be ready, prepared, and willing to transition fully to circular economy if we are going to be able to manage plastics properly. And this comes with a lot of opportunities, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility. Next slide. We are also building very strong foundations for a circular economy. Right now, we are working with UNIDO under a project that has been funded by the Global Environment Facility, the tune of about $7 million to establish a circular economy framework for plastics in the country. Now, this is a very exciting project because what it does is enable Ghana to lay a very well-planned technical, legal, financial, and whatever foundation that is needed for us to be able to transition from the linear economic model to a circular economic model. On top of what Jeff and UNIDO are doing with us, the Global Affairs Canada has granted Ghana another $6 million, equivalent of 7.5 million Canadian dollars, for us to establish the Ghana Circular Economy Center. Now, this is a center of excellence that is going to be established to provide capabilities for our nation to train our people in plastics and businesses associated with plastics. It's also going to provide facilities for piloting and prototyping initiatives or innovations in the management of plastics. And it will provide consultancy and hand-holding services, incubations, and other things to ensure that small, medium-sized enterprises are able to overcome some of the challenges they face as they try to transform their innovations into actual businesses and so on. And under the JEF-funded project, SMEs, about 15 of them are going to be supported to scale up their operations. All of this is going to help sustain the circular economy transition that we are all hoping for. So with all of these, what is next to be done for us to unleash the circular economy in our country? First of all, we need to strengthen our legal framework. We are doing this under so many initiatives, particularly with the project that we are doing with the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Convention, or BRS, supported by the government of Norway. We need to regulate and enforce the standards that we need to ensure that at every station along the circular value chain, we are actually practicing and using the principles of circularity. And these regulations are going to ensure that that is done. We need to increase funding. And one way of doing that is the establishment of an Epr scheme for plastics in the country. Again, we are working with the governments of Germany, Netherlands, working with the private sector in Ghana under GRIPE to establish an EPR scheme for Ghana. In fact, the team from Germany and the Netherlands are already in town. And on the 7th of this month, the 7th of April, there's going to be a workshop in which the next step in the establishment of the EPR scheme will take place. We need to create waste collection infrastructure, effective waste collection infrastructure in the country. That means we need to be able to collect, transport, sort, and store plastics of all kinds so that those who need them for different recycling activities can have access to them. In fact, there are so many initiatives that are coming, approaches to the government for the establishment of recycling plants, state-of-the-art recycling plants. And all of that is going to help us to move towards the circular economy. We need to attract private sector investment. And that is really the focus of what we are doing today with the launch of the finance task force. This is really a very, very important aspect of our transition process. I encourage all of you to support both the private sector, NGOs, and others, to form PPP arrangements with government if need be, and to go alone as a private enterprises to ensure that we have a sustainable, functioning circular economy in the country. We need to rely on technology. We are doing this with organizations such as SAP and other technology are provided, because it's only through that we can know who is acting, who is doing the right thing, who is not doing the right thing, how to ensure that the EPR scheme is working. We are monitoring and evaluating what we are doing, and it's all going to need the application of technology to do that. And we need to educate and engage our community so that they are also aware of the roles and responsibilities that they have in the management of plastics in the country. We need to integrate the informal sector because they account for a very huge portion of actors within the value chain. And we need to ensure that there's gender equity and inclusion in what we are doing. Finally, we need to have regional collaborations. This is very, very critical because we need to enlarge our markets in order to attract the right investments. A country like Ghana is not big enough to be able to attract the kind of investments that are needed to create the jobs and also be able to manage the waste that we are creating. We must pursue interregional cooperation, and the Africa Circular Economy Alliance is one such collaboration which Ghana has become a very, very important part of. There are initiatives for Africa and South America to collaborate, again, to widen our market and ensure that there's South-South cooperation. And there's a lot of initiatives coming from the European Union to collaborate with Ghana and Africa in general for us to transition together this circular economy, to a circular economy. We need to think a little further out by exploring opportunities beyond our borders and beyond our West Africa region. And so I want to ask all those who are thinking about investing in the circular value chain to think about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which has 1.2 billion inhabitants as your marketplace, because that is where the opportunities for businesses exist. And we need to continue to enhance the partnerships that Ghana has formed. The GPAP partnership that has created NPAP is one partnership, or an example of a partnership that we need to cherish and ensure that we strengthen it from year to year. And the Global Agreement on Plastic Pollution and Marine Litter, which was alluded to by Christine, is one that Ghana is really championing. And it might be of interest to you to know that Ghana is one of those countries that are being considered to host the first meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. The process is ongoing, and when the results are out, we will let you know. But all these are things that we need to do and pursue if we are going to transition successfully from the linear economic model to a circular economic model. I want to thank you for the opportunity to deliver these few words and for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boakye, for that comprehensive and really well thought through and informative aspect around how Ghana is committed to and already beginning the transition to a circular economy. A reinforcement that I thought was really important was around the regional collaboration and the need for the scale required through a regional level to be able to achieve the type of action and funding to get the solutions actually implemented. And with that, and thank you very much, Mr. Boakye, that was a really thoughtful presentation. We thank you for your time. With that, I want to introduce Ms. Faith Nzimanze, who many of you would have met previously from Delivery Associates. She will be taking us through some of the key highlights of the financing roadmap. This document was crafted over the last 8 months with inputs from various institutions and subject matter experts, both in financing and the plastic sector. And it also represents the NPAP's commitment and intent to combat plastics pollution in Ghana. Ms. Faith Nzimanze is a project leader at Delivery Associates who has worked with the Ghana NPAP Secretariat and many stakeholders to produce these insights and recommendations. With that, I'd like to hand over to Ms. Nzimanze, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Sabiha, for that warm introduction. Good morning and good afternoon to all our prestigious guests today. We are honored that you were able to take time out and join us for this momentous occasion. As Sabiha mentioned, I'm part of the Delivery Associates team. And if we could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Delivery Associates has worked with the Ghana NPAP to not only establish the financing task force, but to also work with the task force in developing the financing roadmap that we're launching today. The roadmap is a culmination of multi-stakeholder consultations and engagements to identify existing challenges impeding investment and to also begin to start developing solutions to some of these pressing challenges. The aim of the roadmap is to be a starting point for encouraging efforts to remove policy barriers to investments in the circular economy for Ghana, and to also provide tangible steps that can be taken to attract investments and unlock investments in sustainable solutions. If you could please move to the next slide. As a starting point, we undertook a baseline assessment to better understand the financing challenges in the Ghanaian landscape and to better get a grip of the scale of the challenge. It is no doubt that there's a huge plastic pollution challenge in Ghana. This is of course fueled by the rapid population growth and also the increased demand for plastic products and per capita consumption of plastic products. This, coupled with a low recycling rate of collected waste, leads to huge amounts of plastic leakage into water bodies. And we've already seen how this is already affecting livelihoods and communities. This, of course, highlights the need for urgent action to turn this dire situation around. You can move to the next slide. Now, in addition, the government of Ghana remains the largest funder of the SDGs, as highlighted previously. And there's, of course, a huge shortfall between the financing that's available and what the government aims to achieve. The cumulative shortfall for circular economy related SDGs is projected at $193 billion by 2030. Again, this highlights the need for diversified private sector investment. You can move to the next slide. We found that there are several barriers currently inhibiting the flow of funds in the Ghanaian landscape. And to briefly summarize, these are, amongst others, a tough commercial investment environment, riddled by high commercial interest rates. There's limited institutional and technical capacity for circular economy practices. There's limited funding for the informal economy, coupled with limited funding in R&D. There's limited competition in the waste management sector, and of course, limited incentives to incentivize private sector collaboration. We can move to the next slide. We also looked at specific challenges that exist along each stage of the plastics value chain in Ghana. I won't go through this in detail as these are properly laid out in the financing roadmap itself. Now, the action roadmap launched by the Ghana NPAP in 2021 already points to some solutions that can be taken to address the financing challenges that exist in the Ghanaian ecosystem. To briefly summarize, amongst others, these are providing financial incentives to encourage circular economy business models and new innovations, such as low interest rates and low payback periods, incentivizing manufacturers to use recycled content. Importantly, developing and implementing a comprehensive EPR scheme, which the advisor to the ministers just spoke to, providing favorable conditions for the development of end-to-end markets, and of course, investing in waste reduction processes and infrastructure. We can move to the next slide. In summary, what we found from the baseline assessment is that we are seeing a growing number of initiatives aimed at addressing plastic pollution across the plastic value chain, but majority of these initiatives are still being financed by development partners. And this, of course, again, highlights the need for diverse and sustainable funding. We also saw that private sector players are also adapting to circular economy principles. And more importantly, financial institutions are reshaping and rethinking financial requirements in order to be active participants in this growing space. And lastly, we saw pockets of emerging action across emerging markets where countries are increasingly developing new business models to transition to circular economy. But of course, as is the case with Ghana, access to sustainable funding remains the biggest challenge. We can move on to the next slide. Next slide. So of course, the Ghana NPAP Financing Task Force has identified various actions that will enable a sustainable funding ecosystem. The Financing Task Force is one of many task forces that will be set up by the Ghana NPAP between 2021 and 2022, excuse me. And amongst these are some task forces such as policy, innovation, matrix, gender inclusion, and of course, investment in sustainable financing. We can move to the next slide. So in total, we have 26 members as part of the Financing Task Force. And these organizations bring diverse expertise across the funding ecosystems. And as you can see, these organizations range from various government institutions, development and international organizations, local and international private banks, investment funds, and of course, other members of the private sector as well. The Financing Task Force has, of course, developed 12 recommendations as part of the financing roadmap. And these recommendations are centered around 3 thematic areas. The first thematic areas, of course, highlights the need for government intervention and the role that government can play in order to create a financeable financing ecosystem by creating financial incentives and also setting enabling and smart policy. The second theme is around the need for financial institutions to collaborate to develop innovative and sustainable financing instruments and structures for the plastic value chain. The last of these, of course, is around the need to build scale, not only in upstream, but also downstream operations to achieve the bankability of operations. And of course, to do this, we need frameworks to be formalized and industry players to collaborate. These are the 12 recommendations that have been developed by the Financing Task Force, spread over the 3 thematic areas that I just spoke to. And of course, more details on the mechanisms of the implementation of each of these recommendations can be found in the financing roadmap. We can move to the next slide. This is just to mention that these 12 recommendations have also been mapped to the 5 impact areas that have been identified in the action roadmap. And this, of course, was to just assess the direct and indirect impact that we expect these recommendations to have on each of these impact areas. You can move to the next slide. Next slide. Thank you. In addition, the task force undertook a prioritization exercise to identify which of these recommendations need to be prioritized for short-term or immediate implementations, and which recommendations can be implemented in the medium to longer term. Of the 12 recommendations, 5 recommendations have been prioritized for short-term implementation. These are the development of an EPR policy, introducing innovative financial instruments, setting up formal collection points to aggregate waste collection and bolster recycling efforts. You can move to the next slide. The effective administration of government funds, such as the Plastic Recycling Fund and the Sanitation Pollution Levy, incentives for the use of locally produced recyclates, and also setting of minimum targets for the use of recycled content for materials in high polluting industries. We can move to the next slide. In addition, we've also highlighted the various financial instruments that might apply in the Ghanaian context. These are various loans, equity, and guarantees instruments that can further be leveraged to unlock financing for circular economy initiatives. And if you move to the next slide, we've also identified alternative sources of funding as well, from philanthropy, commercial investors, and concessional capital that can also be tapped into for the plastics sector value chain in Ghana. You can move to the next slide. As part of the next steps for the financing task force, of course, critical and first and foremost will be to develop a robust delivery plan, setting out the implementation strategies for each of these recommendations, outlining the targets and trajectories, as well as the various stakeholders that are needed to ensure the effective implementation of these recommendations. Secondly, is to set up routines to track and monitor progress and also problem solve on implementation challenges. And lastly, of course, ensuring that there's a reliable and effective data system to not only track performance, but to monitor outcomes as well. You can move to the next slide. So of course, today we're at the momentous launch of the financing roadmap. We'd like to thank all of our stakeholders on the financing task force that have of course contributed to the development of this roadmap. Looking ahead, the financing task force will now work towards catalyzing financing and collaboration for investable projects and initiatives in the Ghanaian landscape. And of course, the Ghana NPAP will be constituting other NPOP task forces to ensure a collaborative ecosystem. The task force will also now focus on driving progress towards the recommendations that have been outlined in the financing roadmap. You can move to the final slide. Now, where can you find the roadmap? A copy of the final financing roadmap can be found, of course, on the Global Action website. And this is the direct link that you can use to access the financing roadmap. You can also have a look at our social media pages as well, where this link will be circulated as well. Once more, we'd like to thank the stakeholders on the Ghana NPAP Financing Task Force for their collaboration and thoughtful partnership on the development of this financing roadmap. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith, for that presentation of the insights of the financing roadmap and to highlight once more the themes that were identified as necessary levers for unlocking the finance is government intervention, innovative financing solutions, and collaboration and collective action by stakeholders. A reminder that we will paste that link that you just saw in the chat. You will find that if you'd like to follow it, to copy and paste it a bit later on. Considering the above and also the insights shared by Faith, we would like to now move into breakout sessions where we'll invite guests to engage with the themes and other identified insights from the financing roadmap. Now is the time for you to provide your perspective, ask any additional questions, and engage with other attendees to discuss 4 topics, which you have probably pre-selected. There are 4 roundtables. The first and foremost will be chaired by Faith in the Financing Collaborative. This table will allow participants to discuss and share best practices and how to effectively collaborate to finance emerging sectors. The second roundtable will be capacity building. That will be chaired by our member from DA, Lester. This will allow participants to discuss some methods for improving capacity building across value chains. And the roundtable number 3 will be chaired by Michael, also a fellow member of Delivery Associates, where participants can explore the linkages between the plastic sector and other industries to optimize intersectoral synergies and open sustainable financing alternatives. And lastly, innovation, which will be led by myself. This roundtable will explore low to high tech trends in the global recycling industry and assess their suitability for Ghana and pushing us to the forefront in terms of innovation in relation to the circular economy. And with that, I invite Lester to open up the breakout rooms, which have been pre-allocated to your selections. We are allocating about 15 minutes to this, so we should expect everyone back at the half-hour mark. Thank you for your participation thus far, and we look forward to engaging in vibrant discussions going forward. Wonderful. I think I'm going to perhaps begin because I know that we are going against time at this point. I do see people trickling in as they leave their breakout rooms. It must have definitely been an engaging discussion. We do know that we are running a little bit pressed for time at this stage, which is always indicative of good engagement and good inputs at this stage. So thank you so much to those who participated in each of the 4 breakout rooms. We're now going to be moving on to the panel discussion, which will include a discussion on some of the key noted themes and thematic areas. If we could please begin to share the presentation again. I'm not sure. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And again, a reminder of our thematic area, the year of action, unlocking finance to drive action. And with that, I will be passing over to the panel discussion, and we will subsequently have a Q&A moderated by Ms. Omirali thereafter. So with that, I'm going to hand over to the panel discussion.
Thank you, everybody. So I am very excited about this next segment. So we have put together a really interesting cross-industry panel of experts who are willing today to share their insights and their thoughts on how to enable a transition into a plastics-free economy. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our 3 panelists. I hope they have their cameras on. So firstly, we have Mr. Kwadio Jian. He joins us from the GIIF, which is the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, where he's a risk manager. And Mr. Kwadio has 20 years of experience as a certified risk analyst and a chartered environmentalist. This also includes his track record in commercial banking, in risk management, project finance, and he's always bringing a sustainable finance outlook within each of his remits. Our second panelist now is Mr. Samuel Salu. I've known Mr. Samu for a short while, but I know he's an extremely experienced advisor with extensive international industry experience, especially in the chemicals and the petrochemicals chains. He's also, within his long career, been an operations executive within the specialty chemicals, hydrocarbons, polymer, gases, and foods ingredients industry. He's currently working as a global industry advisor for IFC within their chemicals and fertilizers portfolio. Now, our third panelist, last but not least, is Mr. Ishmael Quay. Mr. Ishmael, he's part of the Jospong Group, where he is the assistant manager in business development. Now, the Jospong Group, you might know it very well from being a company, mother company, with operating within 11 industries in Ghana. But the most relevant one for today's discussion is waste management. Now, Ishmael has been in the packaging, plastic manufacturing, and recycling space for about 15 years. And he understands the complete plastic value chain in Ghana. He's also, should I note, he's also a chairperson of the rubber and plastic sector of the Association of Ghana Industries for the past 8 years, and he's been involved in advocacy and stakeholder engagements within the rubber and plastic sector of Ghana. So here you go, very exciting panel of experts. And I'd like to kick off with the first question. This one is for Samu. Now, Samu, the IFC has been known to undertake successful co-development projects in African countries, for example, like in Nigeria. So as an emerging circular economy, do you see an opportunity for Ghana for such projects? And according to you, where do you think these opportunities lie?
Thank you, Junwaria, and happy to be here. I was last week participating in Houston, the World Petrochemical Conference, and actually it was shocking to see for all of us how fast the discussion in this petrochemical conference has moved into circular economy. It is clearly something where the industry is heading to, and all the major chemical companies are developing processes, both mechanical and chemical, to process plastics. It's going to be part of the global value chains. So the processing side is clear. That what is now holding back the transition and scaling up is actually the collection and sorting. And if a country like Ghana can sort this out, pun intended, it will be a great competitive advantage and will attract companies to invest also to the processing downstream. IFC, I work with chemicals, as you kindly introduced me, and with the chemical companies, but we have colleagues who work with waste management. And the waste management colleagues have cities program, other programs. They are pretty used to public-private partnership programs, which I could see that Ghana could explore opportunities to invest in these PPPs. And what is very encouraging is that because of the interest from private sector, from the brands, amplified by regulations and the consumer sentiment against marine plastic, the brands are driving the demand for recycled content, and the prices are actually attractive. And these attractive prices are trickling down also for the baled plastics. So when you look globally, the baled plastic prices, they have gone up tremendously the past years. And we expect this to stay. And it's kind of a decoupling now from the virgin oil prices, which was always the problem with the early part of this value chain. So maybe going forward, there will be opportunities to have MRFs and dirty MRFs, which are economically viable even without tipping fees, or let's say not without large tipping fees, so that they are self-sustained with the market prices. And we are looking as an institution, how could we support these MRFs and dirty MRFs? And there a programmatic approach with public sector landfills seems to be the way to go, so that we get the ticket size up and sophisticated enough sponsors interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Sami. That was very insightful. I'd like to call upon our next panelist. So Ishmael, this question is for you. Within one of the breakout rooms, we've touched quite a fair bit on this particular aspect, which is waste pickers and the informal economy. So they form an integral part of the Ghana's plastics economy. And a key challenge that we have found during the work of the financing roadmap is that there is a lack of funding and a lack of access to a robust market. Particularly, this is acute for women and youth-owned businesses. So from your perspective, how can private sector organizations such as JOSPONG and maybe also public entities help to unlock these opportunities for the informal sector and what they represent? And also, more importantly, build an equitable infrastructure and market for all the stakeholders. And perhaps also, if I may add, what does the formal sector need to expand waste plastic collection and recycling? Over to you, Ishmael.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's fantastic. Now it's great talking about formal sector waste management, waste collection, and recycling. As you all know, the informal sector significantly cannot be ignored, as it plays a major role in all these discussions and all these roadmaps. Private sector and public entities can or help should position themselves to accommodate the activities of these formal sector players. They need to be collaborating with them to kickstart their formalization drives, which will then bring bigger opportunities and then build bigger networks for all of them also to fit in. Here at JOSPON, we operate and run dump sites across the country, which I believe most of you know. They are collectors on all these dump sites who are operating, some with or some also without supervision and or being controlled by the managers of these dump sites. Now, these dump sites, because of these collectors, they are operating also in a very informal way. So now we are taking over the dump sites and managing them. Want to formalize these operators and these sites to create bigger opportunities for them, for bigger and more sustainable business. On the other hand, also the former sector need also to commit some resources to equip these collectors. I'm sure when you speak across with all these collectors or recyclers, their major concerns or their major holdback will be on funding. So yes, if the former sector could commit some resources to equip these collectors and recyclers to increase their collection as in go round picking from the scavengers or whoever, their recovery. You know, a lot of logistics also go into this aspect of it, going around all these places, getting the broken or plastics to bring to the collection, the recycling centers to be recycled. So there's still a collective. So once we're able to do that, we're able to collect more widely, and we're able to recycle within shorter periods. And then once funding is made available, a lot more people can get into setting up recycling centers across many districts or many areas, so that pretty much a lot more can be recycled within shorter periods. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ishmael. So my next question is for Mr. Quadio. Now, Quadio, as GIIF, being a government-backed vehicle, part of your investment policy states that you're given clearance to pursue investment in the waste management sector. Could you elaborate for us some of the initiatives taken in this regard, and also some of the challenges you have encountered in getting these initiatives off the ground?
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all. So I don't know how much people know about the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, but we're actually set up to try and resolve a problem that most African countries have experienced over the years, which is how to unlock more private sector financing to fund and solve their infrastructure deficits, which the AFDB currently puts at about $100 billion per annum to be able to resolve such an issue. We've done a lot over that short period that we've been in the system for the past 5 years. So the Ghana Airport Company, RTC Terminal 3, is part of our project, the Takoradi Port Expansion Project at Takoradi, and then also the Takoradi Oil Jetty and several other projects. To your question, yes, our investment policy statement gives us a clearance to pursue investments in the waste management sector. And it actually falls directly under the social infrastructure in our policy. But as an institution, there was an initial strategic focus to finance economic infrastructure and leverage on that in raising additional financing for investment in other sectors of the economy, especially the social sector, because we believe that once we are able to do the economic infrastructure, then it will become more attractive. And we've been successful at doing this over a period. Just last year, the AFD, that is a French development agency, and the African Development Bank, have actually given about $160 million, 85 from the AFD and then 75 from the African Development Bank. The AFD money of about 85 million facility is to help us on lend to sustainable infrastructure projects in Ghana. And not only did it come with just the financing, it also came, it was accompanied by about 400,000 euros technical assistance package to help build capacity within GIF, as well as help us in identifying project pipelines in within this particular space. So it is time. We are gradually moving to that level where we are now moving into social infrastructure, because the money that we have currently is basically to help in supporting activities that mitigate the impact of climate change. So over the short to medium term, GIF, as part of its business, we focus on infrastructure that will directly and significantly contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation in Ghana. Because as we are fully aware that there is a strong link that exists between waste management and plastic recycling and then climate change. In fact, the census that was done in 2021 puts 22.5% of households that burn their waste, and then about 37.5% which dump indiscriminately in open spaces and public dumps. And the burning of these waste releases climate gases, and then also waste dump on land without environmental control, such as landfills gas capture, produces methane, which is a very dangerous greenhouse gas. So if this is not controlled as an institution, we realize that if this is not controlled as an infrastructure fund, if this is not controlled, it will have a major impact on future climate change mitigation as our population and our GDP continues to grow. And by 2050, if we don't take any action, this is going to get worse. It is actually going to triple. Additionally, in every ton of plastic recycled into new products, it mitigates nearly a ton of climate gases. And if Ghana can achieve the recycling, waste collection, and then the safe disposal targets set in the National Action Roadmap, a twofold benefit will actually be achieved over the period. Significant investments are actually needed to be able to achieve the recycling, waste collection, and then the safe disposal industries to have full coverage nationwide. And I believe this is where GIFT comes in. So yes, as of now, we've not done anything within this space, but we are preparing ourselves, we have the funds, and what will have been the challenge will have been internal capacity. But AFD is on board to help us in developing capacity within the institution, and also helping us to develop the pipeline of projects that will fit the criteria that has been set in terms of meeting both adaptation and the mitigation under the climate change. So yes, we are prepared. And so to the question, yes, GIFT is prepared to execute projects in this sector going forward. But I will have to sound a word of caution that, I mean, it's an institution, though it's a public sector institution, we operate like a private sector institution as well. And therefore, projects which are sent to GIFT should be projects which are bankable in nature. Yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Kwadio. That brings us to the end of the first round of questions. I would also like to encourage the participants to submit questions onto the chat so that at the end of the panel, we have the opportunity to ask the panelists some questions as well from the audience. So this brings me to the second round of questions, where it's all about market creation and about financing. Now, I would like to call upon Samuel again. So one of the key deliverables, as you know, to bolster market creation and to bolster the industry for recycled materials is the standardization of technical specs for recyclates. Now, in your opinion, is a country like Ghana getting closer to standardizing plastics to facilitate collection and eventually support a more robust market? And even more broadly, what do you think is needed here in terms of regional and international standards to make economies of scale work?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is my favorite topic, and broadly there are two set of standards. There is standards for the packaging material, for the brands, for the converters, and then there are standards for the value chain of getting the plastic back into the loop. So I first off maybe about the packaging material standard. So a lot of brands are talking about that their packaging is recyclable. That is great, and we are not yet there even. But then many times people are talking about recyclable when they are thinking that, oh, chemically recyclable. But it needs to be, even for chemical recycling, it needs to be very well sorted. Otherwise, you can't accept that resulting circular naphtha back to a cracker. So I would really like to see the brands standardizing together more, going not only for a monomaterial multiple layers, but also let's all agree that these certain types of bottles are of polypropylene or HDPE. Or it could go even further, and there I know that many brands are against it. You could even dictate what is the color of that shampoo bottle, so that you get a visual sign that, okay, this is polypropylene. That will ease the mechanical recycling efforts. And let's face it, we need to mechanically recycle as much as we can and minimize how much we need to chemically recycle as a society because of the GHG emissions, GHG intensity. Then another area is, of course, then when you get the plastic after the use back into the loop, what standards do you need there? Well, if you don't have standards for baled plastics, for flakes, for food grade, how can you then facilitate the trade, the value chain there? So it is very important that you define the target quality in each step of the way from this collection and sorting all the way to the advanced processing. And that will help to set higher prices for better quality and also help the quality assurance in this value chain. So if every actor in this value chain getting the plastic back, post-consumer, post-industrial, has a clear understanding how can I add more value in my processing step here, and be remunerated with a better price for it. That will be extremely helpful for the value chain to scale up and function.
Super, thank you, Sami.
Yeah.
I just realized that we actually have only 4 minutes left until close of today's event. So I would actually love to get questions from the audience. If anybody is brave enough to ask a question, please go ahead, put on your camera.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yes, so quick one. This is not really related to the panelists, but one of the presenters, I think that was, is it Faith? Yeah, I'm sure it was Faith. In her presentation, I saw one of the slides. She said the defunct recycling fund. Is it a lost battle? That fund is a fund that we've closely monitored. And there's an act supporting it, Act 863. But in her slide, she said the defunct recycling fund. Is it lost? Maybe Faith can respond to that.
Absolutely, sure, John. To be short, it is not lost. I think the Ministry of Finance, together with the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation, are actively working to see how these funds can be repurposed and redeployed to support circular economy initiatives in Ghana. I don't believe that there's a formalized framework that has been developed as of yet, but this is an active area that both ministries are working on to see the best way forward in terms of deployment of these funds.
Thank you.
Over to you, Javira.
Thank you, Faith. I'm wondering if we have time for perhaps one more question from the audience, the final question. So anyone who's dying to ask a question to our panelists, please go ahead. I see that there is a question on the chat. Let me just get that up. So Manuel has asked, in light of COVID-19 and the increased use of plastic products, that is PPE as well as packaging materials, what are some of the financial challenges and opportunities you envisage the pandemic presents and have on the task force driving forward the NPAP goals? I think shall I direct this question towards potentially Ishmael to take on the view from the private sector side? And I can comment on the task force side.
Yeah, sure. You know, the pandemic came with movement restrictions, which means we cannot go where we want to and at whatever time we choose to. This gave a lot of opportunities to lots of industries to innovate new ways of doing business. The plastic packaging sector was one of these sectors. There was an increase in the use of plastic packaging, I believe, which we all could attest to, which means also that there was opportunity to produce more. Once you're producing, that means you're putting it back there into trade. That means there's also an opportunity for recovery, which is for collection. And of all these, the most important of all is to recycle these plastics. Most of this, as you say, the recycling bit, it's because of the same reasons that we are all gathered here this afternoon to speak about it. Is the recycling of it which we are discussing, which of course to us and all of those connected all around is the most important aspect of it all. And this also presents numerous opportunities, and this presents and also help in the task force drive forward the NPA NPAC agenda and goals. So yes, it presents a lot of opportunities from production through recovery, through usage, and of course the final stage, which of course is the recycling bit of it. So yes, there's opportunity all around it, and then with the increase, it opens up a lot more, which everyone also could tap into.
Thank you, Ishmael. And very quickly from the NPAP perspective side, as you know, there's been quite a lot of volatility in the oil prices. So I think as that happens and we're facing new global challenges every day, especially on the commodity side, we're looking as well, the industries will be looking for ways on how to repurpose plastic. And you'll find that the unit economics then veers towards recycled plastic. So that signals the start of a potentially exciting time as well for the recycling industry. I think that's all we have. That's the time we have. I would like to pass on the torch to Faith and to Sabine. But thank you so much. This was a pleasure to moderate this panel. Lots of interesting insights and lots of work for the Ghana NPAP Association as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for closing remarks, we do understand that we are slightly over time, and we do appreciate if you could stay just to hold on for our closing remarks from Mr. Georges Sander, who's an investment manager, an investment professional who has worked within the recycling space and has extensive experience mobilizing organizations in the fight against plastic pollution. Georges, may I please pass to you for our closing remarks, and then I'll hand over to Faith thereafter to officially close out the session.
Thank you, Sabiha. Good afternoon, Honorable Mr. Boachi, fellow task force members, participants. On behalf of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, allow me to congratulate you on the successful launch of the Ghana NPAP Financing Roadmap. It has been a personal honor of mine to be part of this important work. The Alliance to End Plastic Waste is a global non-profit organization with the mission to end plastic waste in the environment. Our focus is on improving collection, sorting, processing, and recycling of plastic waste by developing solutions that enhance waste management systems. This is our priority because 3 billion people around the world still do not have access to proper waste management services. Since 2019, we have rallied over 90 member companies, project partners, allies, and supporters who are committed to ending plastic waste. Much like the GPAP mission, we believe that it is through collaboration and collective action that this complex problem can be solved. Over the past 3 years, we have developed a portfolio of over 35 projects across 29 countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas, where we provide resources and expertise to help solutions scale. We have had the privilege to work with partners like the Asase Foundation here in Ghana, who are not only developing solutions to address plastic waste in the environment, they are also transforming the communities they serve. Through our work, we have seen that early development risks, including access to funding, are often some of the most significant hurdles that projects must overcome to be commercially viable. On one hand, credible benchmarks for input and output prices, bankable feedstock and offtake agreements that also achieve fair remuneration across the value chain, and the ability of the project to meet the market's quality requirements are critical items on the investor's due diligence checklist. On the other hand, high capex coupled with low profit margins in waste management infrastructure translate into limited private sector participation and ultimately limited suitability for commercial capital. Similar challenges may arise in Ghana, where $3 billion are needed over the next 20 years to establish the necessary waste management infrastructure based on a scenario that assumes an 85% collection rate and a recycling rate of 32% by 2040. The financing roadmap, therefore, is a landmark piece that lays the groundwork on how to help to address a key enabler for sustainable development. The interventions and accelerators highlighted in this framework will be essential to bolster action and foster stronger partnership between the public and private sectors. First, policy frameworks that include incentives may increase flows into the plastics value chain, as well as policies that drive systematic change. Second, engaged business can play a catalytic role in identifying and supporting the development of innovations at scale. Third, working with financial institutions to develop financing instruments to enable up and downstream activities. And last, but certainly not least, ensuring that communities are empowered to be part of the solution. I believe the finance roadmap is also an opportunity to leverage Ghana's leading position as an investment destination in Africa, to develop new financial models and to catalyze commercial debt and equity to address the plastic waste challenge in Ghana. Let us also consider tools such as blended finance, credit enhancement, and sound EPR frameworks that have the potential to crowd in private capital into emerging markets. Finally, we heard today from our panelists that standards have a role to play, as well as a renewed emphasis on involving the informal sector. In closing, I would like again to congratulate the NPAP on the launch of the financing roadmap. The road ahead is very exciting, and I speak for my colleagues when I say I look forward to playing an active role in supporting this work to help end plastic pollution. This is the Decade for Action. On this note, and on behalf of the Alliance, we would like to thank everyone for your participation so far, and we look forward for more collaboration and engagement going forward. Thank you, and I wish you a good evening from Singapore.
Thank you so much, Georges, for those positive remarks and also that wonderful call to action. This does bring us to the end of today's agenda, and I think on behalf of the Ghana NPAP, the GPAP, all of our partners, our financing task force members, and each and every organization that's present here today, we'd like to relay our sincere gratitude for you taking part in this event today. Do engage with the financing roadmap on the various platforms that it will be available on. We have shared that link on where you can access it, and we look forward to your continued support and engagement going forward. Our breakout rooms will remain open for the next 15 minutes, just to allow the prior conversation to go on, to network, to meet new people, and to continue the conversation and keep those discussions flowing. However, this is where we do close the program, and thank you all for your participation today. Thank you.